Welcome back. This is lesson 7.2 of the module Authors and Audiences. This lesson 7.2 covers who authored and who owns Batman. In this lesson, I'll discuss the authorship of Batman and why DC owns the rights to the character. By the end of this lesson, you should have a good understanding of the dispute about Batman's authorship and why we know more about Superman than Batman's authorship. Batman. The success of Superman in 1938 made DC look for another comic book superhero that might prove so popular. The young Bob Kane showed DC editor Vin Sullivan some concept sketches for a character called the Batman, and he received a contract. Unlike Superman, DC has never had to defend its ownership of the Batman copyright in court. As a consequence, little is known of this contract, and the stories of Batman's creation are varied. With one exception, every version of the story suggests that Bob Kane embellished the truth about Batman's creation. Key point 1. The details of contracts are only revealed during disputes between parties when the requirements of legal proof mean that documents become publicly available. Batman's authorship has never been legally tested, but it seems Kane's contract with DC gave him credit and apparently some ownership rights. Kane was the source for two different stories about his contract with DC. Longtime comics fan and professional Catherine Ironwood wrote in 1996 that Kane himself once told me that his very first contract with DC was different of that of Siegel and Shuster's contract for Superman, because his father worked in the newspaper business, and he knew that comic strip creators and newspaper columnists made a lot of money. So because Bob was not of legal age, his father negotiated on Bob's behalf and got some kind of ancillary rights deal. Mark Eviner, another longtime fan and professional, offered a different version of the story. Kane's special deal on Batman was not negotiated at the time of the character's creation. When the story first appeared, Kane was paid a flat fee per page. Several years later, Siegel and Shuster, who had done Superman under essentially the same arrangement, filed a lawsuit that claimed the terms were ambiguous and unfair. Shortly after this suit was filed, Kane renegotiated his arrangement with DC. Gerard Jones relates this latter story and adds that Kane was able to renegotiate his contract because he told DC that when he signed the original contract, it was invalid because he was a minor. DC produced a large amount of correspondence and contracts with Siegel and Shuster as part of the ongoing Superman case, so just possibly their business archives might hold documents that could clear up the matter of Kane's contract. But these are unlikely to emerge, since ownership of the character is not a point of contention between DC and Kane's heirs. But other aspects of the early authorship of Batman remain contentious. Bill Finger. In 1965, Jerry Bales, a professor in natural science at Wayne State University and a longtime comics fan, wrote a piece in a fanzine that stated Bill Finger's case to authorship of many Batman stories, including the first. Bales argued that indeed Finger created many key characters and features in Batman. The list included the cowl and cape, the utility belt and gauntlet, the final form of Batman's costume, Robin, the Joker, Commissioner Gordon, Alfred, the Penguin, and Catwoman. Bob Kane went ballistic, writing a 6-page type letter to another fanzine defending his sole authorship of Batman and authorship of the origins. Nonetheless, Kane's letter contained a tacit admission that Finger scripted much of Batman's adventures, and Finger now receives credits in the reprint editions of Batman comic books. The letter also suggests a reason for Kane's aggressive demeanor, because he mentions the forthcoming Batman television series, a series for which he stood to gain significant financial reward on the back of licensing deals that would have been in place by 1965. Key point 2. Authorship is a form of intellectual property. Property has value. Kane defended the value of being the author of Batman and what that gave him. Any suggestion that Kane was not the rightful sole creator of the series might have jeopardized this windfall from the television series. Certainly if the story about Kane pulling the underage invalid contract stunt is true, then he might have feared DC ripping up his contract on the basis that if he was only a co-creator, he was in no position to sign it. But for DC to rip up the contract would have needed some other firm basis to ensure its rights in Batman. Moral rights of authors. The moral rights of authors do not get much play in America. These rights are enshrined in the Berne Convention on Copyright, to which America and all other major countries are signature. The relevant clause reads, independent of the author's economic rights, and even after the transference of such rights, the author shall retain the right to claim moral authorship of the work. Key point 3. Moral rights exist separate to property rights. They at least acknowledge an author's hand in creating stories. Jerry Robinson. Bill Finger and the many hands who worked on Batman are generally now accorded their moral rights as authors. For Finger, who died in 1974, the importance of this recognition is hard to judge. But it is possible to see the importance of this for Jerry Robinson, who disputed Kane and Bill Finger's claims as the originators of the Joker, and who makes a strong claim for his own conceptualization of that character. These rights and the desire to use them to shape readers' associations of Batman so that he was given due credit mattered to Robinson. In 2008, the then 86-year-old Robinson sat for hours at the San Diego Comic Convention signing 8x10 black and white glossy prints of his image of the Joker. He gave these away free of charge to a long queue of fans and personalized them on request. He was not promoting any particular book at the time, and it seems likely he was there to stake his place as an author to as many of the 100,000 or so attendees that he could reach. Robinson was at the time on contract with DC as a creative consultant, and he is listed as such in the 2008 film The Dark Knight. If his appearance at Comic-Con in 2008 was part of promotion for that film, which was released the week before, the approach was very low-key, non-existent really, perhaps because the actor portraying the Joker, Heath Ledger, had died earlier that year. But given that, unlike many comic book creators, Robinson achieved economic stability through various artistic undertakings, and given his appearance at a good number of other comic conventions in the years immediately before his death, it seems most likely that he set out to claim his moral rights as an author. His claim to the Joker was not a desperate plea based on the need to generate some income, but a quiet insistence. If he generated income of his claim to authorship, that was most likely a secondary reward for Robinson, who saw his career as a political cartoonist as his proudest moment. When Robinson died in December 2011, comic fan sites and various media outlets reported that the creator of the Joker had died. This lesson has 3 key points. Go back over your notes and watch the video of this lesson to make sure you have noted these points. Next up, Lesson 7.3, Who created and who owns Marvel characters?